Hello, everybody. It's very unusual for Mr. Loo to talk about negative things about JB retirement, but I think it's important for me to give some balanceness. And given that I've actually stayed in JB for quite some time, in terms of frequenting there, and I would like to give you a view of why I think there are some reasons why you should not go to JB for full retirement. But let's watch on, shall we? And most important thing is, how do I bring a balancedness picture in the end? Okay, so let's watch to the end. So the title of my talk today is 7 Reasons Why You Should Not Retire in JB. Now, this is very contradictory to the one of the biggest fan of Johor Bahru. You might be thinking, what's Mr. Loo up to? No, but this is now serious. Okay, this is quite serious thing. And I think this is important because in the light of some latest statistics that just came out. As usual, there are no disclaimers when it comes to this, but please remember subscribe and like our YouTube channel. We'll be publishing a lot of things about finance and financial literacy and things like that, but more importantly, very interesting out-of-box ideas that I have and I come across. So there is a new article that just came out in the news that says that Johor Bahru is still attractive to Singaporeans. And in fact, this number is shocking to me. And I'll talk more about it. But 55% of Singaporeans would consider moving there in the light of the rising costs in Singapore. I think this number is becoming more and more real. And more importantly is that a lot of people just thought of the cost of Singapore, haven't thought about the cost in JB, not just in financials, but more non-financial costs as well. Today, now I have to tell you the other side of the picture, why you should think twice before retiring in JB, before everybody rush in just thinking it's cheaper, therefore you should go there. I'm going to talk about some things that are more unusual that Singaporeans don't think of. The one of the key thing that actually turns me off about JB is that JB is much hotter than Singapore. Now, a lot of people say, Mr. Loo, how can that be? JB and Singapore is just side by side. It's the same sun, same weather, same climate, same rain, same whatever, right? Well, not exactly, okay? This is my experience so far in Malaysia. JB is actually much hotter than Singapore. And I think it's got something to do with the way the city landscape is being planned. So if you can see, this is a very typical place in Austin Heights, and this is just an example. There are many estates, something like that. If you look at this place, the walkway are not contiguous. Sheltered walkway is clearly missing in some of this place, and the car parks are not indoors or underground or things like that. You park outside. It's actually quite inviting for the rain and the shine, especially the shine, to come in. The number of trees, while is a lot, okay, they are in the wrong place. They are not co-integrated together with urban living, where in Singapore is the other way around. And somewhat very, very hot, in JB. Now, I've been asking a lot of people, why is it so? No, and I've been investigating this. But would you agree with me on this? Some of you guys. Now, I'm a person who walk a lot, like easily 12 kilometers to 15 kilometers a day. And I cannot find a place to walk, that is outdoor, that is sheltered, and I'm always in the sun, and I'm very afraid of the sun because it causes pigmentation of the skin and things like that. I find this a real issue. Now, some of you guys may not find this an issue, but I do find this an issue. Is clearly hotter. So my solution in JB is to walk and stroll in the mega malls, which is very nice and much bigger in Singapore. But in the normal places and things like that, it's kind of difficult, to do that. Only time I can walk a lot is in the night where the sun is not very shiny. Now, this is where we need to appreciate Singapore. One look at this picture, you understand, right? The trees are all co-integrated with our living estates. And right now, more and more estates are all contiguously connected by sheltered walkway and things like that. And even in a sheltered walkway, you have a lot of greeneries. I suspect that the greeneries that is planted may drop our temperature by 1 or 2 degrees compared to JB. Think of them as natural air condition and things like that. And that's very smart city planning by our country. And this is really one up of Singapore versus JB in terms of the weather. And I do find this, I don't know whether everybody find this to be true also. This is where, when I say this, people think I'm pulling a leg, right? So JB food is really too affordable and too good, right? Now, there are a lot of people then ask, Mr. Loo, how can this be a negative point? No, I kid you not, right? I kid you not. It is very difficult to resist the temptation. The things that you normally wouldn't buy in Singapore because it's just too expensive or you got to think twice. Now, for example, right now, some things are expensive, so you order a smaller portion. In Malaysia, JB, you won't think twice about ordering less. Most of the time, you will overorder. In my case, overeat because it's very nice and it's very affordable. Some people actually think that in Singapore you can find good food as well. That is true, but at what price, right? So the problem with that is that you just have a tremendously amount of good food and things like that. Every time I stay in Malaysia for more than 3 days, my weight gained terribly. And I think it's the same for many Singaporeans who go there. Just eat and eat and eat and eat, and it's very difficult to control yourself there. And soon you put on weight and it's very bad for health and things like that. I worked terribly to burn it off and then to go back again and gain it back again, right? So I actually think of this now more negatively, right? I've been telling my wife, if I keep going to Malaysia, that's the end of my life. I'm going to end up dying young. At the rate I can't resist the good food, right? Maybe you guys have better food discipline than I do, but in face of temptation is, I think, quite difficult. Singapore, the food is good as well, but you think twice because it costs a hell lot more, so you won't order so much, right? But in Malaysia, wow, you don't think about ordering less because it's just too affordable and the food is very good. So this is where I think it's a big negative. Some people say, don't worry, Mr. Loo, I'll die young, but I die happy, right? I think it's difficult to come to an agreement on this, but I tend to think that for those people who really want to live very healthily and eat simple whatsoever, don't go JB. Yeah, don't go JB and retire. You get tempted terribly. Oh, don't forget, in JB, you do get very good durian. Much better, much more affordable than Singapore. Well, for simple reasons, the fruit is a function of freshness. And in JB, you get very fresh fruit that's just picked up from the ground when the durian just dropped. And it's clearly shipped much faster to JB than to Singapore. Not a few hours matters a lot, but it does to some extent. And the price is clearly much more affordable than Singapore. I think it's debatable, but durian is one of those super sweet, super nice, and super deadly in giving you more sugar and put on weight, and one of those things that send you to the grave faster. So I have an issue with it. I don't know about you guys. Now, it's important that in our retirement we need a social circle. Now, it's easier for me because I got a very close relative in JB, but a lot of you guys, just think that, oh, I want to escape inflationary fires in Singapore and just run to JB. You may end up there alone and lonely. It's not nice. I pick up a phone, I can meet up with friends and family here, but you may not have this kind of privileges. And you can be lonely there. And retirement, you don't want to be lonely. A social circle, social network is very, very important. This is where I would suggest that if you have a mind that you're gonna retire in JB, you got to start making social connection early. Don't wait until you 七老八十, 70, 80 years old, then you go there, start connecting. Is very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, very difficult. Good thing is that the religious organizations there are actually quite welcoming, and you can find some circles there. And I'm very sure, in the JB circle, the neighborhoods are actually quite nicer. They are a lot more friendly and things like that. But you don't want to go there, only when you're old to restart your social circle. That's very difficult. Clearly, because of the distance, and it's definitely more inconvenient for family gatherings, right? Well, it's not that it's distant. Now, for me to go from my house in Jurong East all the way to Changi, it takes about 35 minutes. For me to go to Austin Heights, is in JB, is also 35 minutes. Actually, it's not that far. But you do cross customs and things like that, and some people find it very inconvenient and blah blah blah. So it's more difficult when schooling grandchildren are involved, when your children are working, and ask them to join you for dinner, for example, in JB, right? That's a lot more difficult to think of. So, and where you say, oh, you can just come over for dinner, if you want, and things like that. That's a lot easier. So I think family gatherings, your immediate family gatherings, are a lot more difficult when it comes to a cross-border retirement, and you might miss your grandchildren and things like that. So something to think about. For me, grandchildren are very important, so I think about this a lot. I'll give you a solution in the end, but this is something I seriously think that everybody should reconsider before you just rush into that JB is the best place to retire without thinking about your social network and your family circle. Clearly, this one is a complicated thing, right? The residence visa in Malaysia is complicated and increasingly expensive. Even the silver tier for the MM2H, Malaysia My Second Home visa, it's 5 years renewable, but you need to put a fixed deposit inside of 100 over 50,000 US. You need to buy a house, and there's a minimum stay of 90 days a year, and blah blah blah. It's complicated. Yes, you can try to apply for a Sarawak and Sabah one, but those has their own complication as well. My solution currently right now is thinking is for this one, I haven't have the need to do that because I don't travel to Malaysia a lot. At some point of time, I have to start thinking about the visa. Right now, I'm thinking of getting the APEC card, which allows me to stay much longer and with less trouble. I don't stay in Malaysia as much as if I'm staying there right now. But the day I do it, then I need to apply for visa, and the visa requirement is complicated. Now, fortunately, I have a Malaysian company. I can apply for work permit as well and things like that. But for most people, your options might be a lot less compared to mine. This is clear. You cannot expect Singapore level security in Johor Bahru. You cannot. Right? There is clearly more crime in JB, and we all acknowledges that. Okay, and you got to do a bit more, exercise a lot more streetwise wisdom when you're in JB. Right? You don't drive big cars. A lot of you all love to drive big cars. I don't know. Even in Singapore, I don't drive big cars. Drive big cars, flaunt. With wear big jewelry and do certain things. You don't do that in overseas, right? Singapore, this is a uniqueness of Singapore, right? You cannot bring it to JB, you cannot bring it to Europe, you cannot bring it to US or whatever, right? Those things will get you into trouble. There's certain place you shouldn't go at night. You shouldn't be alone at night in the streets, beyond certain hours. And girls, I think you even exercise more care and things like that. And it's not just in JB, but it's also rest of the world. So Singapore level security, don't expect it in JB and don't expect it overseas. But I think if you exercise some common sense security, I think you should be fine. Just to wrap up, the solution for most people, I think would provide some balancedness is to have a retirement that straddle between Singapore and JB. That's my plan, okay? So I would think of a 3 day in JB, 4 days in Singapore, or 4 days in JB and 3 days in Singapore. That kind of thing, or 1 week here, 1 week there, that kind of thing. I think this straddling is good. Weekdays, stay in JB, weekend, come back to Singapore for you to catch up with your social circles and your grandchildren and your children and things like that. So in that sense, you catch the best of both worlds. By traveling this way, I think there'll be less of a visa issues at the immigration, and you really catch the best of both worlds, right? You can both enjoy the high level of medical care in Singapore, and can enjoy some simple low cost living in Malaysia and things like you get space, you got lots of interesting things to do. So I think straddling would be a better option, and that will help you harness the both worlds. Okay, now some people say no, I don't even want to stay in Singapore, I want to go completely and stay in JB or whatever. Then you got to come in challenge with those things I've remarked. Anyway, these are just my view. Happy to be contradicted, happy to hear your views as well. Please let me hear your views in your comments or in my 165 Telegram group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a day or two. Bye bye.